Thing real quick. Live. It's still not live.
Yeah, it is.
It's not live on Facebook yet.
It's live though.
All right. Don't start it yet. Hold on.
But it is started.
No. Don't start us. Are we live?
Yes.
We're unmuted.
Yes. Wait. Do it again.
No. The mental health podcast, and I need it. What are you doing now?
Just looking at you.
Now this is live. Jesus. I just need it to go live on Facebook so I can share. Sorry, folks. This is all stuff we usually do in the 2 minutes lag time, and now we're just doing this. So, there we go. Look at us. Hold on. Share. Share now. Public.
Absolute professional.
There you go. All right, guys. Welcome to Does It Get Better? Yeah, no, I see. Thank you. Oh, I'm watching the wrong feed. Oh, Lord. Hi.
Hi.
This is a podcast about mental health. We all need it, obviously. I'm a mess. Today the topic is crying like men. And we have a special guest today, Alexis Marshall from the band Daughters and the State of Rhode Island. Hey, Alexis, how are you?
Hello. I'm in central Pennsylvania now, though.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about you.
Just
It's really
flitting all over the place. Yeah.
I'm not here to get to know you anyway. So.
Okay.
I'm just here to push a Sons of Abraham reunion.
It can't happen.
I knew it.
It
It's the
can't.
only reason I said yes.
It can't happen unless the whole band of Daughters wants to play.
So the stipulation is you'll sing if Daughters is the backing band?
I'll sing if Daughters or On Broken Wings is the backing band. Those are the two bands.
To go with the latter on that.
Rich, you picked a topic. Oh, and the guest.
Yeah, I picked our guest. I asked Lex to be our guest because I've known Lex for quite a long time, and I know Lex has, probably had some ups and downs in your life, and I know you pretty well. So I figured that for our first guest, we could have somebody that could share what Neil and I kind of talk about is kind of like, where you at? How you feeling? How did you get through this thing? You've been through a lot of stuff. You're a man and you're at this older age now and it's all catching up to you. And I know I went in and out of a psychiatric hospital over the summer. Neil, you've been going through some waves of depression and some anxiety and everything recently and your whole life. And I think Lex and you and I have talked candidly, texted about some stuff, and you've shared some good information with me. So I figured at this point, it might be a good time to just kind of open up a little bit and just get another person's take on what Neil and I discuss. And basically that's, that stigma that is associated with men talking about their mental health and having feelings and why did it come from? Where did it come from? So I know that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of angles to take it from, but getting another voice on it was something that I kind of wanted to do. So basically, if you want to kind of start and introduce yourself and, if you want to just go from there and, let me know how you feel about basically the that stigma that comes with men talking about their mental health and addressing it.
Yeah, it's been a weird year. I know, Rich, we've talked, as you said, a good deal. I think the past 6 or 8 months. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was in rehab this summer myself, and it's the best thing I've ever done in my life, to go and just kind of remove myself from the world and sit in an old house with a bunch of other men and addicts and like talk about my feelings and cry all over everybody. And it was like, you know, yeah, there's a lot of shame, and that comes with well, first, like my mother raised me essentially. You know, I spent a bit of time like weekends type shit with my father and all that.
Hmm.
But I mean, he wasn't an open guy. You know, his crying was all like alcohol, drug induced, like self pity in front of his children. You know, for sympathy, that type of thing. So, it certainly wasn't like a useful vulnerability I was shown by
Hmm.
the patriarch of my family. But my mother was, she was 18 when I was born, and a hippie,
Yeah.
like naked around the house and stuff. So I wasn't like really uncomfortable with my emotions as a kid, but I didn't have a filter. So I think I was probably far more emotional than I should have been, and on top of that, like a lot of things I was exposed to, and like neglect situations and abuse and um, various forms of abuse. I had like no way to deal with any of it. So, you know, I remember an exercise in rehab we were doing where it was like, what is it that men do that women can, or what is like a popular view? And um, women can't drink like men drink and all this that kind of shit,
Mm-hmm.
like men are supposed to go out and work and women stay home and
Right,
cook
right.
food and all that stuff. It was just like, it wasn't the experience I had. It was like where I came from was completely, my mother was like very caring, but had no idea what she was as a kid,
Yeah.
and my father was a drug addict and an alcoholic and a pretty abusive person. So um, I was kind of like back and forth, like in these two worlds. So a lot of that shit I didn't subscribe to. I didn't subscribe to ideas that like men behave one way and women behave the other. And so I've always been like open to crying. and, but I've probably been more of like I don't know what else to do with my feelings.
Right.
So it was like an open an openness and an honesty and like a vulnerability. I that was something I couldn't understand. I mean, I could cry, and but it didn't do me any good. It wasn't an outlet. It didn't
Hmm.
help me in any way. It was something I was doing because it was like really kind of self pitying. So
Do
I don't
you
think.
do you feel like the way, because you were raised by your mom, pretty much strictly by your mom, and having a female figure around you as the what you absorb when you're younger and you're growing up and you learn how to express emotions and just basically like you take on what you're raised by, because I was raised by my mom by herself also, and I have a very sensitive cry about it all the time kind of reaction to emotional things as well. Do you feel like that is part of just being raised by a female figure and not kind of not having a male figure around?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my father was around. It was like
Mm-hmm.
I was, weekends and
Sure.
summers, vacation with dad. It was that type of thing. So he was present, but he wasn't a guide. He didn't teach me anything about life. And my father, he I got two things that I really got. Well, I got a lot of shit from my dad. None of it was good, but the only bits of advice he ever gave me was he said you should drive a shitty truck because people will realize when they're driving that you don't care if they hit you. Like
Okay.
some like they're not gonna fuck with you when you're driving.
Uh-huh.
And the other was if you're drinking your coffee anything but black, then you might as well be like drinking a milkshake. You drink black coffee, you drive a shitty truck, and then and I drink black coffee and I drive a shitty truck now.
You do.
So, so like, but I hate my dad, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But like all this other bad stuff I got from him. Um, I don't know. I really don't know why I was so vulnerable or something as a kid, or just like
Yeah.
crying a lot, or like really sensitive. Um, my the older of my two boys, he's really sensitive, and I reckon he gets it from me.
Yeah.
Uh, and my kind of like I kind of I watched him like close when he was a baby. I was just like my first kid. I don't fucking know what to do. It's like don't fuck with my kid. Don't like do any shit. It's like really nerve wracking. So I mean maybe like my mother's like her being 18 when I'm born, my dad is gone in like less than a year, I think, or maybe a year or two, a year probably. And then, she kind of did it on her own and hopped around and lived with this guy and did this thing. Um, trying to like worked shitty jobs, doing whatever she had to do. So I don't really know if it was something that like she had in her own personality or something,
Mm-hmm.
or it was the situation or the environment or what the hell it was. But yeah, man, I mean, I cry easy. I just was watching the Bruce Springsteen live, on Broadway.
Yeah, yeah.
I watched it multiple times the other day, and I kept crying. And I got in bed and watched it again. And I just like, it's just like I'll cry.
Yeah.
And I'll cry.
That's funny you mentioned. I had a moment yesterday when I was driving. I was doing some errands yesterday, and I had a crying moment while I was driving to the store because I thought about my cat. This is the trigger moment for all of this stuff was my cat dying and the situation surrounding it. And for whatever reason, my brain decided that it was time to relive that moment right when I was driving. I was getting off the exit on 95 to go. And my brain was like, yo, let's remember this right now. And it was like a brick wall. And I was like going 60 miles an hour on the highway. And I was like crying. And it was like it wasn't like oh, I missed the cat kind of crying, like oh man. It was like you're the worst piece of shit ever because you let your cat die crying. And it was like, I thought I was way past that too at this point. I thought I was like, because it's been a year and a half now since that happened. But it was wild that I had that moment. And it's like, it when you think it's gone, it's like the worst. You kind of let your guard down and it just kind of pops out of nowhere. And it's like, yeah, remember, nope, you're still not over it. But
I'm not saying it's the same. I think it's similar though, because I always talk about my dad passing like that, where like whenever I hear someone talk about like, oh, my dad just passed or whatever, I'm like, it's not ever going to get easier, but the the duration of how bad it is gets shorter.
mm-hmm.
The further, you know what I mean? Like, so like when you first experienced that loss, it was probably like a week of just bawling and hating yourself and like whatever, and like I don't know. To me, I think I'm projecting. And now I'll get like waves of it where I just like think about my dad for a second and I like well up, and then like a few minutes later I'm like, and because it's been 8 years now almost, so it's
Yeah.
like it moves a little different. And I think that's probably the same for everybody. Like it's not getting easier, but
It
just the
spaces
amount of
itself
time
out. Yeah.
to process it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Half an hour ago, I got a message from a guy I do like one of my AA meetings with, and he was saying, he asked how my week was. Told him about the weekend rather than, how's your weekend? And he said, well, I had a tough, like a slip or whatever it was. He had like a tough moment. I got back on track and got off track. And I replied to like when does this get easier? And he said, it never gets easier. He's like, but you get back on track quicker. Like the duration, yeah. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's the best we can hope for, because I mean, that shit, once it's there, it's there. We just really have to figure out how to deal with it, how to process it, and how to be like, that's a thing that happened, but this is right now, and
Right.
I really got to deal with what's in front of me.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. Like me being able to get through it and sort of realize more, kind of what you said, like, okay, you're here now, you're driving your car, you need to focus on what's in front of you and not be crying. But also the fact that like, okay, I got to the store, I parked the car, I took a deep breath, and I was like, all right, I have more power over it. And that's a big thing too with my therapist too. He's like, ever since I started therapy seriously, it was all about power and control over what is out there and what you can control and what you can't control and how you're going to control it. And this thought, this incident is in my brain, and it controls a certain part of my emotions from time to time. And I have to be able to control it as well. And that's kind of where I parked the car, and I was like, all right, you're done. We're done. That you had your moment, you as in that thought or that feeling, that emotion. And now let's go inside and do what you're supposed to do. Whereas, a year ago, it was like, it was destroying like 2 days of my time. I'd just be like, I'd think about it and I'd just lay there and not talk to anybody and just be like, this is never going to end. So and that's kind of one of the points that we do on this podcast, is to just kind of let people know that, like, if you keep at it, it'll get a little bit better. And the methods in which I use to try to make it better is what I'm sharing. So, but I know it's like a lot of to do with control. And Lex, do you have any methods in which you use, like, I don't know if your what you go through is similar to what I do. Like, you have a moment and you have a thing, right? You have a thought or an emotion, or whatever, in your head that you need to control. Do you have any methods, or do you have any things that you do to get yourself off of or on a track?
Yeah, I have. So I have some tricks I went through. My therapist taught me some stuff, like, just tapping. I'm familiar with tapping, but it's sort of like I have like dissociative disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of remove myself from my body in some strange way, and to deal with things, and that's not helpful, as it turns out. I discovered now. So there's tapping. You're tapping at certain spots. You can tap here. These. You got these spots. You can just do this, and it's kind of like, it's physical. Like, years ago, I was having really bad. I used to, for a long time, have terrible anxiety that what I thought were LSD flashbacks, because I had really bad. I used a lot of acid as a teenager, like a lot, and I had a really bad trip that I thought I was kind of staying with me. I eventually realized that what likely happened, I had like an anxiety attack while on LSD or something,
Man. Yeah.
and now it's staying with me. So I used to punch myself. Like, I would punch myself to kind of like snap myself out of this like shit that's happening in my head, where I'm thinking like, I don't like where I am. I don't know where I am. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go away. I don't know where I'm gonna go. I'm in like hot, clammy, and things are very intense. And the room's getting small. So I would hit myself to kind of bring it out, which is the worst form of tapping, I suppose, I would think.
Yeah.
Which would be self-harm, which is essentially like what I think a lot of people do with like cutting and stuff like that. And so I mean, I guess, stay on the topic of that kind of shit. It's like, I engage in self-harm a lot for performance art, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until like I was in my 20s where I started like doing it just like my own time to kind of to deal with some things, or to really just punish myself. So it's, again, the worst form of what is tapping, which is kind of like I'm right here. I can like,
it brings you back to that brings you back to reality, kind of. Is that
it kind of gets you focusing. There's some mindful walking that my therapist taught me that I don't do, but I've done it a couple times. And you stand and you say, I'm standing, I'm standing, I'm standing. You say everything 3 times. I think it's like a Tibetan or some shit. I don't know. He got it from some strange place. And then say, I'm walking, I am walking, I'm walking. And then you step with your left foot. He's like, left foot goes as such, right foot goes as such. And you do everything in 3s.
Gotcha.
You do 3 steps. You said, I'm stopping, I'm stopping, I'm stopping. When you stop, and then you turn and do this. You do it out loud. You do it for like 15 minutes. And like, it's supposed to regulate you. It is probably useful, but it just seems too silly to me to actually employ. So I don't use it. But I do tap.
I'm doing something silly. I'm doing something silly. I'm doing something silly.
I feel ridiculous.
I hope no one's watching. I hope no one's watching. I hope no one's watching. Now I have anxiety about that. Now I have anxiety about that. Now I have anxiety about that.
It's again, I mean, you got to figure out what works. You
of course.
You were talking about like using self-harm in performance art, and like, and that was before it manifested itself like organically for you. Like, I wonder if that's like a thing. You know what I mean? Because like, I feel like early on in the band days, I kind of took some stuff out on myself too. And if it's just like, that's like a subconscious kind of like, you wanted to do it and you knew it wasn't acceptable, and so you did it in a forum where it was seemingly acceptable, and then just accepted that you were going to do it, you
Yeah.
know?
I think like being young, there's like a lot of confusion where you don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Iggy Pop, you know, and I've seen Iggy cut himself. I'm like, fuck yeah, I can cut myself too. That's like really entertaining. So I mean, essentially, it's like a perversion of all that, where it's okayed by my, my heroes essentially,
Yeah.
and I get a pat on the back for like performing, like playing hard for my peers, and it's similar with a lot of my behavior that's attention seeking. So it serves many purposes. Um, but yeah, like I said, gets perverted, and now I'm using it, and no one sees me doing it, and so it's not serving the purpose it was, or perhaps it is, but now I'm utilizing it in a kind of a different environment, and that's not good.
No.
No, it's
No.
not good. So, um, you know, yeah, the tapping is great. There's something called 5 4 3 2 1. I don't know if you're as familiar
No.
with,
Yeah.
where you think of you're sitting, you kind of just take a moment to yourself and think like, what are 5 things I can see in the room, and you identify 5 things. Gotta do it out loud. What are 4 things I hear, and you go through like the 5 senses all the way
Yeah. Yeah.
down to
Yeah.
like, what can I taste, like at the end, what 2 things I can smell, and you think, well, I can smell the fucking my shirt, I can smell like my detergent, I can smell like burning incense in the arm, like, so you go 5 4 3 2 1 all down through the senses, and you keep doing it until you're calm and kind of back in yourself, and I think it can give a needed the needed space from whatever is kind of ailing you at the moment, or kind of triggering, and can cause some discomfort. So
Then it feels like just distraction to me.
essentially, yeah.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, you need to find like a proper environment, like a safe environment to sort of deal with things that we don't know how to deal with, or never dealt with. And sometimes like sitting on the bus is not the place you want to fucking deal with this like resentment you have for your dead father. You like it's just like,
Yeah.
this isn't the fucking place for that. I really gotta like calm down, bring myself into my body, just kind of like slow down for a second, and kind of and take those feelings and recognize we're having them, or that I'm having them, and discuss it with somebody, whether it's like my therapist or my sponsor, or just whomever like I talk to, just, and really like focus on that shit, and have like a safe place to do it. Because yeah, driving to the store down the street is not the place you really want to be visited by these like awful memories that you're having, Rich. It's like, what the or so yeah, to sort of just kind of to deal with it and get grounded, I think is a good way.
I
It's
feel
no
like
cure, obviously, but
I feel like it is like a carryover from like last week's episode. Like I feel like I really don't understand the separation between good and bad distractions.
well, you're like healthy and unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to like. It's been explained to me, but I'm just like, well, they all kind of seem blurred.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 5 4 3 2 1 thing to me, that sounds like an obsessive compulsive disorder thing. Like, oh, I just need to count. I just need to do my counting.
But the
Well,
end
I think
result,
That makes sense.
the
like
end.
anything, you can misuse it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I mean, these are useful tactics for me as an addict, like, um, or like a person who disassociates. Uh, Things can get kind of difficult in my life, and I just like remove myself from it. Sort of like, I got to be present. I need to be
Yeah.
here. And if I wake up and I'm doing 5 4 3 2 1 just like compulsively, then obviously that's a problem. But I can't imagine there are too many people who have developed a compulsive behavior it's supposed to distract them from their compulsive behavior. Compulsive thinking. I think that's like a whole other level of crazy. I don't even know about that. Very crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
like, oh, you're supposed to distract yourself with your work. Okay. I'm never coming to Earth again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna get wrapped up and call everything work.
Well, again, like if stuff doesn't, you find you take what you need and you leave the rest, and like there's something out there that's going to work. And if you become too preoccupied with counting, then and you also don't want to like wear out the floor by like walking back and forth like you know like being too aware of I don't know, it's scary stuff. We gotta be careful with the shit we do because like I got out of rehab and it's like I have food issues now. I mean, like I gained like 12 or 15 pounds in rehab and then got out and now I compulsively eat until I'm sick. Like it just happened last night where and my partner's like, when did you feel? Because then I bitched all night about how sick I felt. She said, when did you feel like when did it wasn't good anymore? It's like it was halfway through when it didn't feel good, but it's tasted good.
Mm-hmm.
Kept doing it. I couldn't stop myself from doing it. It's like fucking so on top of all the meetings I go, I gotta start going to like Overeaters Anonymous or some shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, when does this shit end? It's
Yeah.
just like we can make anything an addiction. And even those who don't have like substance abuse problems, I think have a habit of like anyone with trauma. It's like we find a thing that we do too much of because it just like it satiates this need. And it's never healthy.
Right.
It's never healthy. It's
That's you said something interesting just now. Can you like talk about that a little bit more? Like the why you're saying it's because of trauma? Because I've always just assumed, or I mean, the assumption's been forced upon me that it's an addictive personality. It's just as simple as, oh, I just have an addictive personality. That's why I do everything at 135%. Like what makes you say that it's a trauma? Like where did you
I mean, I
pick
don't think
that
it's
up?
like 100% that people who have like whatever trauma is gonna behave in particular. But there are a lot of studies, and now that I'm like 8 months removed from rehab and like not actively working on this stuff, some of it's like, but there are a lot of studies show that people who are I wish I could get the terminology. What I should have done is studied all my old workbooks and shit one that I did when I was away, so I could like quote all this stuff. But there's I should pull them out. I got them up there, and like I can do all this shit with you right now. But like there are particular things. They did a study on a large group of people where it had this thing had happened to them, and they rate them on various numbers. Have you had you watched abuse in the home? You've seen abuse in this way, sexual abuse, blah blah blah, blah like all this stuff, and your kind of score on a particular. You get one for each thing you
Mm-hmm.
say yes to, and then you score on a 1 to 12 or whatever the hell it was, and studies show that the higher you're scoring, the far more likely people were to develop compulsive behavior and addictive behavior. It's not a guarantee. It's not that, well, I scored a 2, so I'm going to develop an alcohol problem or something like that.
Right.
It's just you can have one, kind of one issue. Like there's one thing that you dealt with. And again, I wish I had the terminology. I should grab my books down and right up. But it can be one thing that sets all this shit in motion. And some people have a myriad of issues that can create something else. I look at my own family, my older brother and older sister, where all sort of dealt with the similar trauma anyway. My brother and I developing addictive behavior and substance abuse and other issues, where our sister didn't, and she instead found herself in like countless relationships and marriages to like abusive, like physically abusive men, and sort of took the trauma and then because essentially all it is trauma reenactment is
Right.
what we do, where we find not necessarily a comfort in these things, but a familiarity where we decide that we normalize completely abnormal and unhealthy behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and then we begin to act on it. And it can be like I know Rich, like I mean, we lived together for a long time. Like you're a straight edge dude. Like all the
Mm-hmm.
time I've known you, it's like, but you can develop other compulsive behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean like you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, and if you're those, you're also a sex addict, and you're also this other thing. I mean, like, we're all developing these different ways, and different things are
Straight edge is also a compulsive behavior
it
Yeah.
can be, right?
in
I mean,
its own. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're like kicking someone's ass and carving an X on their forehead, like, this is not a healthy behavior for anybody. It's and often a lot of that behavior is like when I was straight, I was like 17 or 18. My father was an alcoholic, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to be like my dad. I'm not going to do that shit. I'm going to like be better than that. And I really like Earth Crisis, so I'm doing this. and and then, that was bullshit, man. It didn't really mean anything to me. It was kind of like, I'm gonna throw myself entirely into this. This is gonna fix me, and it didn't. And then I went back to drugs and alcohol, and did that for, 2 decades. so yeah, I think from a lot of it is some was said to me in rehab that like really was a comfort to me as much as it was shocking. Was a counselor there was talking to all of us and people, and we were kind of discussing trauma and trauma reenactment and what it's done. And he said, like, look at everything that's happened in your life. Like, of course you're here. Like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Like, there wasn't any other place for you. You've dealt with this and this and this and this, and of course you're in rehab. Of course you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or sex addict.
Like, it all adds up, right?
Or you can't sleep,
Yeah.
or you like are crying all the time, or you fucking like can't stop yourself from engaging in these like terrible, emotionally damaging relationships, or whatever it is. It's sort of like all these things that have happened to us. We don't deal with them, and we hold on to them, and they manifest in different ways, and it can be. We can have the same experience, and I can develop a drug problem, and you can just sort of develop like shame and guilt and stress and depression. It's all abnormal behavior, but it's an appropriate response that our body's taken and our minds have taken in these situations.
It's interesting, like you say, you kind of end up where you're supposed to be. That's it. I think a lot of the self-harm that I started, and stemming from finding my cat and then literally beating myself up over it for almost 6 months straight, that wasn't just the only thing that led me to that physical manifestation of these behaviors. It has to be my entire, childhood, my teenage years, my early 20s, not figuring out how my life was supposed to be. And then I think that manifestation was just like that's how I ended up, right? And I find myself, giving myself a black eye, finding myself breaking my hand, finding myself and like hiding it from everybody as best as I could by lying and being like, oh, I can't do this because I got to do something else, and because I have a black eye, I can't work, right? And then finally ending up in Butler, begging for help because I couldn't help it anymore, and then finding out exactly kind of what you said. It's like this is where you really needed to be. This is where you should be, because you never addressed things as you were a child. You never addressed things when you were a teenager. You never addressed anything when you were out on your own and had zero clue what you were supposed to do once you were out in college. Like you go from high school, you go to college, you're all these financial responsibilities, all these relationships, all of this stuff. You don't even know what being an adult is like, and it's like you're expected. And I think for me, that was like that manifestation of that physical harm unto myself was me realizing I failed so many different spots, and kind of the failure was letting my cat down. Was like, that was the actual physical manifestation of all those years of disappointing myself and other people. But finally ending up in a spot where professionals could help me, and being like, yeah, this is it. And that's a good point that you bring up. And I'm so thankful that I was able to, and I've said this before too, I was able to dial the phone, ask the people at Butler, like, hey, I'm hurting myself and I don't want to do it anymore. Can you help me? Like, legitimately just saying it in those words, and the woman just being like, yes, come here, and take it from there. And I'm very thankful. Oh, there's 2 cardinals out by my bird feeder. That's my grandmother. That's sorry. I have my. We talked about this last week, but there's two
They're
cardinals.
both-
There's two
They're
cardinals.
both your grandmother?
They're both my grandmother. She's multiplied now. Yeah. No,
So
but
she has dissociative disorder
she,
too.
she does. She does.
Explain her how to tap.
She's got a tap. Yeah. Now
That's happening, and then the two cardinals just merge into one cardinal.
well, the red cardinal against the snow is pretty dope. Anyway, so yeah. It's and I always go back to this point too. The reason why we do the podcast and stuff and things that I say and things that we share is to, if somebody needs that little tidbit of hope or motivation or advice on how to get to another point. Like, you went to rehab, Lex. Was it a self-motivated or was it a outer sources to get you there?
I mean, I was kind of on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and my therapist was the director at this particular place, and said, he said, "There's room. Just come here right now."
Mm-hmm.
Like, just so I had to borrow, tens of thousands of dollars to go to rehab and get in this place, and
Wow.
and it's the best thing I ever did.
That's awesome. It's good to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish I got there earlier.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I'm
But,
sure everybody does, right?
yeah, but it was needed, and like compulsive behavior, man. It's like, I think again, it's not, addiction is not just about like substance abuse. It's not about like alcoholism and drug addiction. There's like you're saying, like, you're hurting yourself, and I don't know how many times you hurt yourself, Rich, and then said like, well, I can't do this again. Like, there's some shit I'm not gonna do, right? You break your hand and you're like, fuck, I gotta cover this up. I like obviously this isn't working for me. Like, this isn't, do it again. You do it again.
And do it again. Did it? Yep, multiple times.
Well, I'm up all night. I just like ate a man. I did this. I'm super embarrassing it, but I'm just gonna admit this. That the other day I was like actively shame eating, and I went to the grocery store and I said, I'm gonna eat a box of macaroni and cheese and a can of beefaroni. I haven't eaten beefaroni since I was on welfare. Like, grew up on welfare as a kid and ate beefaroni regularly. I was like, I feel like shit. I'm doing this, and I ate it, and I felt horrible.
Yeah.
It's like, this is some shit that I'm like, I gotta stop. And then last night I'm eating till I'm sick, and it's like, I cannot. It's like, it's just like, I'm not gonna do that again. And then you continue that shit.
Yeah.
It's hard. You think like you've cut one head off, and then like it's got another head.
Yeah.
It's like shit. So.
Oh, sorry. You got to eat through that wall, though. Eat through it.
You got to get to the other
You
side.
get sick, and then you just got to keep going, and eventually you start getting sick.
It's like my drinking when I was a kid. It was like drinking, and then I would throw up, and like eventually you continue to drink so regularly, so frequently, so heavily that you don't throw up anymore. And then it got to a point where I didn't get drunk anymore.
Oh, man.
It's just kind of like,
Oh.
yeah, this is like an issue. This is a problem. So no,
Well, what you just said about going to the store and you were like, you had a goal in your mind. You were like, I'm going to do this, and I know it's bad, and I'm going to do
that's
it anyway.
the worst shit to eat. I fucking eat beefaroni.
That's disgusting. I'm sorry.
I'm 41 years old. I just went to the grocery store and a can of beefaroni like a fucking asshole. Like a true asshole.
Did you, as you're doing it though, what is, if you can recall, because I do this kind of stuff, I do that kind of thing as well. Like I engage in a negative situation, a behavior, like a physical thing. I don't self-harm anymore, but I do things such as midnight rolls around and I'm like, I'm going to eat a bowl of peanut butter and jelly, which I did last night. I was like ready for bed. I had taken my medicine. I was already falling asleep. A bowl, and
Put the two
just no bread, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with just peanut butter and jelly in a bowl, and I stirred up.
Especially, I guess it's better for you than a sandwich.
Right? I mean, if there's no bread, sure. I mean, it's gluten free, so there you go. But as I'm doing it, and I do this repeatedly. Well, I don't want to say repeat. I do this from time to time, and it's exactly kind of I think what Lex did. Like, you're physically putting the things together. And you're looking at it and you're like, this sucks. This, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to feel like shit. I shouldn't be. But yet you keep doing it. And then you take that first bite and you're like, this is awesome, but it also sucks at the same time. And you complete it. And then I looked down at the table and I saw the empty bowl and I'm like, this is disgusting. Why did I do that?
I
And
can't get over this.
but it, like, in the moment, I think what it is that just that instant gratification of whatever we're trying to, like, feel better about in our brain. For that little length of time, you just feel a little bit better, but the whole time you also realize that this is gross, this is whatever, this is all negative things, right? And, then I wake up in the morning, I look in the sink, and there's that bowl with the stuff. I, tried to wash it out. I almost try to, like, cover it up like a, like a cat does to their poop. They cover it up so you don't see it or smell it anymore. And it's just like, how can I get the power? And again, it comes back to control, and, like, being able to control that impulse to, like, not scoop out peanut butter and jelly at midnight when you're half asleep. It's just like, what do you do? Where does it come from? How do you?
It's like unmanageability. It's like I work various 12-step programs. The first step is just like you really just recognizing the unmanageability of this shit. Where it's like I need to eat. There's a saying where like alcoholics or drug addicts, like, you catch the lion and then you kill the lion. People in Overeaters Anonymous, like, you catch the lion, you put the lion in the cage, and then you take the lion out 3 times a day and you got to pet it, but you got to put it back. For people with sex addiction and sex and love addiction, it's like you catch the lion, you put it in the cage, and whatever you do, you just don't get inside the fucking cage. So it's like you really gotta, like, you gotta do. It's a hard thing. Like, food is tough, man.
Yeah.
You gotta eat to live, and, like, eating disorders, that's tricky shit, man. Same with those of us with sex, love addiction. It's like it's tricky shit where you're just like, intimacy is a thing we all desire and, like, want and need, and when that's corrupted, it's just like you don't fucking know what to do anymore.
Right.
Same with eating. When that gets corrupted, you're just like, yo, well, I don't know. I gotta eat. I don't know.
But I just don't know how.
It's hard.
I've always been really good at, like, when I have, like, a negative addiction, whether it's gambling or whatever it's been in my life, I've always been able to just, like, turn it off. But I've never been able to turn off the food thing because, like what you were saying, like, if you turn off the food thing, people rally around you to tell you how, unsafe it is what you're doing. It's like, believe me, I could afford to fast for 21 days. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people, they have the solution who don't have the experience, right?
Yeah.
And don't really understand what the unmanageability is, what the problem is.
Like my instinct is, like, if I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat this bowl of peanut butter and jelly, like, my instinct is like, oh, I'll just go to White Castle. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, that's not better.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I fought the urge to go to Taco Bell after work last week. Leaving work. I work, like, once a week every two. I work 2 days a month now on a Thursday night, right? I have a shift. And I get out of work at around 10:15, and my coworker, I was like, Jess, tell me not to go to Taco Bell. She's like, don't go to Taco Bell, like that. Because I had already eaten, like, a shift meal, like 7 o'clock at work. I was like, all right, this is dinner. And I was, like, mentally there. I was like, dinner time, eat it, fine. I didn't overeat, I didn't undereat, I just ate a meal. You're allowed to eat, right? Kind of like what you were saying. Then 10 o'clock rolls around, we're closing up, we're ready to go. And I just was like, I was craving the soft taco bean Taco Bell thing, like we all know very well. And I was like, Jess, tell me not to go to Taco Bell. She's like, don't go to Taco Bell. Don't be an idiot. And I was like, all right, I won't be an idiot. So, and Taco Bell is literally right around the corner from my house now. Like, I can see it from my front. So it's really easy to make that slip up. So I didn't go. But just like, Neil, what you're saying, instead of going to Taco Bell, I just raided my freezer and, like, made 2 Beyond Burgers, a bowl of beans, and my own tortillas. And I ate probably twice as much as what I was going to eat and felt even worse about it. But I didn't spend any money, so then it was okay. Like, in my head, oh, I didn't spend $15. I just, I just ate all of this food that was in my freezer.
It's like, I didn't drink the bottle of whiskey, but I drank 3 bottles of wine instead.
Yeah.
So that's, you think these, like, you try to rationalize it now.
Yeah. And it's always at night too. Do you guys feel like
That's
stuff?
The worst.
Yeah, it's nighttime.
That's the worst. For me, it was almost like celebratory. Like, oh, I got through another day. Like, let me just pick up Taco Bell on my way home, or let me just pick up Halal Guys, or, like just something on the way home. I just want to eat like a little something to unwind.
Yeah.
What? To unwind and go to bed immediately? Unwind? What are you
It's like
doing?
it's a compulsive behavior. It's like, and it's you can do it for like I feel bad about myself, so I'm treating myself this way. I feel really good, so I'm treating myself this way. It's. And I honestly think everybody, I mean, that I know at least, could would benefit from some form of like a 12-step program where and I stand by it. I know people think it's like a cult, and like you go to then you got to start going to church and all this
Yeah,
bullshit. Like, man, it's not. It's like
that's something that
it's really
someone in a
well,
cult would say.
right. um, but it's just sort of like acknowledging that I don't know how to do this. I can't do it on my own. And if there's a higher power, whatever it is, whether it's like a stuffed animal like I'm talking to, and just like every day just be like, yo, I'm feeling like this right now, and I gotta try not to do this shit every day, and like look to that thing to just be like I don't have the answers, but off I go into the world, man. I gotta hope for the best, and like there's something somewhere. It's like I don't know. And like not a religious person, didn't grow up with that shit. Like was definitely a hard time when I was in rehab, and we would do AA, we did all these programs, and that shit is like in the big book, man. God is gonna right you. Give it up to God, and that was real hard for me.
Let go and let God.
Yeah, it's just like I'm not into it. I'm not into that. That's not gonna work for me. And like at this point, but I mean, they write the big book in 1939. These are religious men. They're like, and times have changed, and we've evolved, hopefully. Um, but that it's like, yo, for me, like my higher power is just the program. Like, you know what? I don't have the answers. I have shown that when I make decisions, I make the wrong fucking decision, and I've accepted that. And then like, if I got big questions and if I got some issue, I call somebody from my program. I go to a meeting.
Right.
I listen, like, and that's it. And sometimes that's all I need, man. When I'm having a bad day, and when I go to a meeting and somebody's just like, there's a dude in like Sheboygan who's like, goodness, he's saying the thing I need to hear. Like Fred in Tallahassee, or like whomever, and like God knows where. It's just like says the thing I need to hear. Where I'm like, that's it, man. I feel better.
Yeah.
Like I don't know this dude, but I fucking know this dude. And like, or woman, whatever it is, like that connection is like, that's my God.
Yeah.
That's my higher power. That's like the thing I need, because I can't do it. I can't do it.
That was big for me too when I was in the CBT program, is the connection with other people experiencing the things that I'm experiencing, and hearing them say the exact same kind of things that I'm dealing with, and I had never thought anybody else was dealing with it. And that's one of the things when you recognize an issue with yourself, and you kind of like, nobody in the world is going to understand me. I'm crazy. Nobody's going to get it. Then you get in a room with 4 strangers, and they say the exact same thing that you're going through or relating to, and you're like, it was probably the best feeling hearing everybody with these stories that I can relate to. And it was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And the best parts of those days was the group therapy, when it was just moderated by, one of the therapists, but we all just got to talk, and we got to be like, I would say what I was going through and how I was feeling. And then somebody on the video call or whatever, or even the room, would just be like, you know what, me too. And we, exactly what you just said, Lex, like stranger from Riverside, Rhode Island, and me from Providence, we connected, and we were able to just like, I didn't even know half these people's names sometimes, but it was like, I wanted to give them a hug after, because it was like, we related, and we gave each other little tidbits of help and advice, and just letting people know like, hey, I did this little thing, maybe you want to try it. And it's what a relief it was to have these people in your life, and, connect with them. And, I only connected with one lady post program. Her name was Carol, and she was in her 60s, and she and I were going through a lot of stuff. She was grieving over a loss, and I was as well, which was part of my issue. But she was gardening a lot, and I had just started gardening a lot over the summer as well. So we would talk about our flowers, And it was like it was just a moment that we would, we can disconnect from anything we were worried about. She'd tell me what she was growing. I'd tell her what I was growing. I had no idea how to grow flowers outside because I had just bought my house, and I was just like throwing seeds in the ground and, putting water on it and not really knowing. But she'd be like, oh, well, try this, try that. And it just sounds like a normal conversation to the outsider. But to us, I think that was like a step in a positive direction to get us out of that little darkness that we were in that program for to begin with, So just having those connections and making them was so important for me.
It's therapeutic, man.
Yeah.
That's why they established like American Legions and VFW halls. Because like so and so is getting shot at and all this shit going on overseas and comes home and it's like with the wife and kid.
No one can relate.
Yeah, and they're like, I don't know where to go with the way I'm feeling and what's going on. And then you like can go talk gardening with somebody sitting at the bar at the VFW, and it's like there's way more going on there than, and you can also like hit up with that like, when I had to shoot that guy and if I wanted to be like, that's crazy stuff. And it's like that's shame reduction is huge, man. That is like fucking huge. And when you can just like feel comfortable, like my roommate in rehab was like a Republican, like guy from Long Island, forklift operator, mechanic. Like I'm like, I am not like this dude. Nothing wrong with Long Island, but like, just it's like there's this dude who's just like, I'm in this room and I fucking like I need this man's support now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm there for him and like crying on each other and like, Jesus Christ, man, like there's something like brings us all together, man. I think like again, it could be huge for the whole fucking world if everyone would like get in some form of some sort of therapy.
Everybody needs therapy. Yeah.
It's like so we can all be like, yo, we're just trying to figure this out. And like
I like that terminology you use, shame reduction.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Just someone else to let you know that what you're doing isn't a ridiculous thing. Like, no, we all do that. It's cool, man. Like
feeling like we need to keep secrets is it's not, it doesn't feel good, man. Like, and whatever it is.
I'm a super public person. Like I don't even know what that feels like, to be honest. Like I'm always like, oh yeah, this happened. Like, oh, dude. Put it away, man. I'm like, oh, that's what happened. Oh.
I mean, I'd say for me, it was there was some shit I talked about rehab that I was like, yeah, I'm taking this with me when I go. Like I'm going to the grave with some of these things, and like to talk about that was just like the biggest relief. And just like, and have people like, I did an AA meeting one day and this guy was like, yo, yeah, I smoked a bunch of meth and I stole his car and I crashed into a tree and then I got arrested and I was like, and then went to jail and I joined this gang while I was in jail and all this stuff. And everybody's just like, yeah, okay, sounds like Tuesday. It's just like,
sounds like
go to a place where you're like gonna say some shit. You're like, I gotta talk about the stuff. It's pretty fucked up, and everyone in the room's like, all right,
yeah,
me too. Or like similar thing here. It's just like, man, it's so needed. It's so fucking needed because when you spend your whole life just like, I don't know how to be who I am. I don't know how to be honest about who I am. And now I'm like, but I engage in this behavior, do this shit. Like, how do I hide this? Now it's like, you don't want to be open and honest about some shit that you're ashamed of because it's just like, I don't know what the hell, like, what's everyone going to think about me? What are people going to think of me? Like, I think like a lot of people are struggling, and it's not benefit. We aren't understanding like people who've gone through something and like need help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think we shouldn't like put them in a rocket and shoot them off into space. It's sort of like we gotta like help each other here. Like it's the only way that people coming up are gonna like benefit from this. So, man, shit's complicated. People try to pretend it's not complicated. It's fucking complicated.
Yeah, getting help isn't easy. It's like it's like not. And again, it kind of comes full circle to the beginning of just like that, like difficulty of being a male and having feelings, and we're all different and we all process things different ways. But it's like, for me being me, like I think I have this like people think of me as just like, oh, he's always in a good mood and whatever, and he's never whatever. And like I think that thing, like people just always assumed I was fine, like because I've hardly ever in my life really got mad at anything or took any negative energy out on anybody or had an argument or whatever. And if I did, it was the end of the world. Like if I did something bad to a friend by accident, and Neil, you and I have had a couple things, and it has still stuck with me, and you probably don't even remember, and I do. See, so there's things that I've done to my friends that probably don't register anymore, but
Yeah,
it's go
you're
ahead.
just like it probably wasn't a big deal.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It was probably like such a minor thing. Like you're just such like you're such a good person that like what'd you do? Uh like you mispronounced my name to somebody and you're
you
like,
know,
oh no, I can't live with myself.
it's just stuff, and and just being like that over and over and over and over again, and that's like my internal workings are just like so built up, and like I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know where to put it as I was growing and becoming an adult, and then just like relationships and friendships and all this stuff. And then finally, it's like I never knew how to be a man or a person. It doesn't even matter if I'm a man or not. You're just a person, and how to talk about my feelings. Never learned how to do it. In my family, especially too, like we never talked about our feelings. We were very not because of any reason, but just that's how we communicated. We were just like, we were always supposed to be in a good mood. So we were always in a good mood. Even if there was stuff going on externally, like if I was in school and I got in a fight with somebody or like whatever, I'd come home and we were the family. I had my sisters, my mom, and everybody's supposed to be in good mood. Things happen that build up inside and we don't know where to put it. And kind of like what I said, it like built up. And then finally, 2 years ago now, whatever it was, it manifested in this way. And like Lex, what you're saying, like everyone could benefit from therapy, and we never really know when to start it. I guess that's the bad part, is that like we start it when we're already kind of like over the edge, and like if we're able to, it's like it already kind of exploded, and we have to like kind of clean up the mess to see where the leak was coming from, so to speak. So
It's like I think we again, just not even as deep as like therapy, but I mean, if everyone was
just talk.
more comfortable about speaking, like whatever, like
Yeah.
you said, you have some shit that you feel like you've wronged Neil in some way, and sometimes like, yo, I did this thing. He'll just be like, yeah, it's cool. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Like,
just say it out loud to
yeah, you end up carrying all that stuff around yourself, and it's like our resentments and then our anger for people, like it harms us. It doesn't do anything to anybody else.
Yep.
Like the guy that I hate doesn't give a shit. But I'm sitting with that. I'm stewing in it. I'm just like, whoa, this motherfucker. Like he doesn't, yeah, like it hurts me, and I gotta like get over that shit. And sometimes just like do something dumb, and rather than be like, I had a thing with a friend of mine the other day. I was like, I had to call him up and be like, I got this like I don't want to have this resentment. And it was like, I feel this way about something. And he was like, oh yeah, no, it's cool. And
and that was that. Yeah.
I'm glad you called and said that. I was like, I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like it's so simple to do, but just like to just stay ahead of the curve on that, because like, man, sometimes you go too far and it's hard to get back.
It really is. Yeah, you almost to a point where like there's a point of no return for some people because they had never learned the skill to communicate, and then you get so far and you're just kind of screwed. But
I don't think there's a point of no return for anybody. I just think like there's a point where just like it's you so deep in the weeds, it's real hard to get out.
mm-hmm.
Like,
but you still can. There is hope. There is
get out.
Yeah.
But it gets harder and harder the deeper you get, and I think like we got to find a way to avoid getting caught up there.
Yeah.
And if like everyone's open, like what you guys are doing here, man, is great. It's like just talking about some shit. It's like sometimes all people need. Some people just need to like hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I need to hear Neil say this thing, and I feel better. And I heard him say something. I heard Rich say this, man. And like I said, I've gone to meetings, been like, man, I heard what I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't even need to share. I just needed to be there.
yeah.
I feel like so much better.
I
And that's not
definitely
going to fix what's wrong, right? So we still got our shit we got to address and like actively
Right.
work on. But to just feel safe, man, it's like so huge. It's so huge, especially for like those of us with just like uncertainty and trauma and like all that shit. Like it's
I've never been good with because I've tried the meetings back whenever ago. I've like had a couple of bouts with meetings, and I've had a couple of bouts with therapists, and it's never worked for me. But like this, like the one-on-ones and the the casual conversations where like the weight isn't, there's no like, I don't know, there's something about like the burden of like this is gonna fix me. Something about that just always like really weighs me down. And like it's been so much easier to like just do these pods with Rich, or just even when we're not on air, like we're just talking about stuff. It's like how like that first conversation, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
That first conversation before the pod started, where I was just like, I just needed to hear someone like who understood me talk about going through things that I can relate to. And
Mm-hmm.
that was just like, that was just so important. Like just,
Not feeling alone.
yeah,
Yeah.
without the burden of this is designed to fix me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like I just put too much pressure on it, I guess, because I'm always like, this isn't working. This guy doesn't know me. He was not, you know. I can't believe I'm paying $75 for this. You know, like, I don't know.
Well, that's what we're here for. And I got to stop the stream because we're past an hour now. So
Oh,
so we got
all
to
right.
stop. But we can keep talking. So I'm just going to stop the stream. So whoever is watching, thanks for watching. See you next week.
See you next week.
So, all right. So stop the stream, but we're still recording the podcast. If you still want to chat a little bit more, we can. We're still recording. If not, we can wrap it up. You just let me know.
Yeah, I'm good. I got home. I don't have anywhere to be. I already shoveled the driveway.
Did it stop snowing?
No, it started snowing again. So I think yes.
How'd you end up in Pennsylvania?
How did I end up here?
Yeah.
So a few years ago, we had my ex and I had our second child, and her parents lived in central Pennsylvania, and we really needed the help, so
Ah.
we came out here, and now I'm living in central Pennsylvania, but not my favorite place certainly, but
Are you at least near one of the highways?
yeah, it's easy in and out, but it's 3 hours to anyway. It's 3 hours of Pittsburgh. It's 3 hours of Philly. It's 8 hours back north of home.
That is central Pennsylvania. Oof.
Yeah. It's I mean it's lovely. It's really nice to look at, and a lot of interesting towns, like depressed, fascinating places outside. Mm-hmm. We're like in the Appalachians apparently, like in there. So we've been looking for visiting snake handlers of Pentecostal churches or something. Like to check it out. We were like watching this crazy documentary last night on HBO. So yeah, it's I mean it's fascinating and interesting, really lovely, and we live at the bottom of a mountain, like bears. There are bears.
Oh, that's awesome. Sounds like a cool change of pace though from living in the Northeast. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I miss the familiarity, but I found in my life a lot of familiarity has brought me in trouble. So it's kind of nice to be out here.
It's somewhere different.
Yeah.
I guess the fear of being chased by a bear will keep you sober.
Okay, at least keep my cardio up.
Oh, that's actually something I meant to ask you, Lex. You did jujitsu, or
yeah, I did martial arts. Like I did kickboxing and jujitsu for like 5 years.
You did that for like 5 years. Was that something that you did on like a physical fitness thing or a mental health thing, or just like
compulsory?
Well,
I got super interested in it, and then when I got sober, I like really got into it, like really committed to it in like 2008, and I was with it a lot, and then I dislocated my shoulder.
That's right. Times. Yep.
I had 4 separate dislocations.
Jeez.
And I realized that I got to